the Premier of the Eastern Region, Dr. Michael Okpara, began to threaten secession and began to argue that revenue be allocated according to the principle of derivation. The control of the Midwest government by the Igbo Premier, Dennis Osadebe, only served to embolden the Igbo leadership that the time had arrived to call off the bluff of the Northern region. The census of 1963, which revealed that the population of the North was even greater than that of the rest of Nigeria by a margin much wider than had been contemplated, puts the patience of the Igbo National Caucus on trial. The implication of accepting such figures they saw was that the North would be able to control the federal government with a simple majority, should the Northerners decide. The implication of accepting such figures they saw was that the North would be able to control the federal government with a simple majority should the Northerners so decide, and there was no incontrovertible evidence that the Northerners could not decide so to use their position now that the Southerners were proving ungrateful. Then we went on to talk about what happened between the North and the East, and the writer says here that in the circumstances, both the Igbo and the Hausa Fulani leadership had to be involved in a trial of strength. The stage for embattlement was neither the North nor the East, but the West. And here, again, we mentioned how, yes, they had a plan to do what they wanted to do in Yoruba land, but we allowed it. How? Because we had hostilities amongst ourselves. It says here, Yoruba in the action group unleashed towards themselves intra-ethnic hostility of the worst type. On the platform of tribal chauvinism, the faction led by Chief Esther Akintola succeeded in persuading a section of the Yoruba NCNC to see the writing on the wall that the Igbo were seeking to dominate the country against the interests of the Yoruba, which was true, by the way. And then it says, by the way, Okpara had been made to succeed to the leadership of the party, thus superseding Chief J.O. Fadaunsi, national vice president. And the way the Igbo went on throwing their dominance in the face of the Yoruba in the federal universities and corporations, airways, railway, Nigerian Port Authority, many loyal Yoruba NCNC began to demand an end to the Igbolization of their party. If you think what happened with LP is like something that's never happened before, think again. It's been happening before. Igbolization of the NCNC. And we've talked about it, how NCNC itself was created. It was founded in Lagos. And the four major groups that made up NCNC, there was no Igbo majority in any of those groups. It was NNDP, the party Herbert Macaulay founded in 1923. It was TUC, the Trade Union Congress. It was Lagos Market Women's Association, and it was the student movement. And there was nothing so Igbotic about it. Right, it was supposed to be a nationalist organization. Nobody even shouted, "Oh, Yoruba people own the party." Nobody thought about it like that. It was just a nationalist organization. So we're all doing something together as a nation. Until folks who had a clannish mindset took over the party in 1946 and turned it into an Igbo party. And when they did that, when it was time for even Zik to go to the to the central government, what he did was, instead of allowing the vice president to become the new president of the NCNC, who happens to be Yoruba man, Fadaunsi, they made sure that an Igbo man became the president, Michael Okpara. And also made sure that, contrary to the plans of the Edo, they made sure that Osage or any of those Edo Bini people would never become the premier of the Midwest. They made sure it was an Igbo man, Osadebe, even though the Igbos were a minority in the Midwest. If you think you're playing politics with some people, good luck. So Akintola was talking about what they were doing. And by the way, this whole thing that he mentioned is what birthed the document that we discussed here the other day. We discussed this document in a video on YouTube. The video is called Achebe, Meritocracy or Nepotism. Please watch it. And if you want to read the document, please go on Redomi Global. It's on Telegram. Go on Redomi Global and look for white paper on political alignment in Western Nigeria. That document shows you the breakdown of each agency of government and how it was taken over by a particular ethnic group. We're going to read more of that later. And please don't say it was in the past. It happened a while back in Anambra. It's even recent. Less than 100 posts in a federal government institution. 65 of the people in that institution are from Enugu. 811 were from Anambra State. 811 from a place where people where they work there don't reach 900. 811 from a particular state. Because when people go around telling everybody that everybody's a tribalist, it's important to be reminding ourselves. Hakon, Ishitini, Ishiti, like nobody should be gaslighting anybody and trying to hide what you're doing. 1 second, I want to read something to you. I think I've read it here before, but I think it bears mentioning. There's an opportunity in Enugu. I want to read to you what the prerequisites are, the criteria to get in that job. I'm going to read it to you, and you can now decide. You'll be the one to decide, or not be me. Go. You can't tell me whether that thing for you, say it makes sense. And when you're one Nigeria, so when you hear people talk about Nigeria and how you are tribalists, you are terrible people, you are not allowing us to become your boss in your land, therefore you are tribalist. Let me read to you what they came up with. In fact, let me just read on this one alone. This one is even good enough. Junior Community Health Extension Workers. Let me read to you. Enugu State Government, call for application. The Enugu State Primary Healthcare Development Agency, in collaboration with the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency and in line with the transformative health agenda of His Excellency Barrister Dr. Peter Ndubisimba, under the Renewed Hope Health Initiative, invites applications for the community-based health workforce program across 260 wards of Enugu State. So you can be the junior community health extension worker or assistant community-based volunteer. Now, these are the requirements. The first requirement is that you must be an indigene and resident in the ward of application. You are from that ward. When we say ward, we are saying councillorship ward. You must be an indigene of that ward. This has gone beyond state of origin or local government of origin. We're not discussing ward now. So you must be from that ward and you must be resident in that ward. Then second prerequisite is that you must have a valid JCHW certificate. In other words, being from that ward of origin, having that word of origin was more important or is more important to them than even having a valid certificate. And then number 3 is that you must have good communication skills, including local dialect. You must be able to speak the local dialect. Not that you can speak Igbo, but that you can speak that dialect. Now, these are the people that tell you that you want to have a governor in Lagos State. Why must you speak Yoruba? Have we not gone beyond that? But where you are from, they're not even asking for the language. They're asking for a specific dialect in a particular word. And the person must be from that word of origin. But you are not tribalist. Is every other person as a tribalist? Am I against this? No. Whatever you want to do in your place, do it. You just don't get to go around Nigeria telling people how to live and telling them how you are for national unity, national cohesion. They all should open their doors for you and they are tribalists for not doing what you want. But when you get back home, you don't even allow somebody from the next village to get a job in your ward. Haba. By the way, if you're from Enugu and you're interested, you don't even close safe at September 11 to September 15. Don't close. Someone says on TikTok, it says that means someone from Anambra cannot even apply. Someone from Anambra, someone from the other ward cannot even apply. Let alone someone from the other local government. Let alone someone from another state. State is Tijinoju. You see how clannish that is? If you talk about people living in the ward, it will make sense because it's community health. You want to make sure that they know the community. They are able to work amongst the people. So it makes sense. But no, not that you're not just that you're a resident there, you must also be from there. But these are the same group. These are the same people that will tell the entire nation and tell you that you are bigots, you are tribalists. I don't think they are tribalists, by the way. I think they're just doing what is good for them. But I think they lost their right to be having conversations when it comes to national unity. That's what I think. Or let's put it this way. They can talk about national unity, but don't accuse anybody of tribalism because what you are doing is worse than what anybody has ever done. May God help us in this country. Now let's get back to the book. Somebody says they rationalized it and said it was local. Yes, if it was local, it can be word of residence, not word of origin. That is clannish. And it's also primitive. I mean, if we're keeping it a buck, respectfully, that's primitive. But I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying?